If you're looking to take your rock guitar playing in a more creative direction by adding more jazzy style chord changes and a more fusion sort of vibe, that's what I'm going to be talking about in this lesson. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the 5 chief chords that you need to get down to be able to solo over. I'm going to talk about how you can solo over them by using just the modes of the major scale. For a lot of guitar players, learning scales seems to be a bit of a bind. So we can make this a lot simpler by being able to tackle all of the chords that you're probably ever going to encounter only by using modes of the major scale. That'll mean that you don't need to learn things like harmonic minor, melodic minor, diminished scales, etc. A whole load of stuff that you probably don't want to do. Firstly, let's set up what the main chord types are. When you're playing over rock style harmony, even if it's in a fusion context, you're only really going to encounter major 7 type chords, dominant 7 type chords, minor 7 type chords, half diminished or otherwise known as minor 7 flat 5 chords, and altered dominant chords. Let's take a look at each chord type and talk about one scale that you can use to play over every single one. That means that your mindset doesn't have to be all over the place. You just think about one scale every time you encounter these chords. Firstly then, let's talk about your major 7 chord type. Your best bet with this one here is to use the Lydian mode. So you can see that on the screen in front of you right now. The Lydian, if I start it from the root here, you've got a root, major 2nd, major 3rd, sharp 4, perfect 5th, major 6, major 7, back to the root. Now the shape that you see in front of you is based on the caged system. You could also play this 3 notes per string, which will look like this. But over your major 7, that is the kind of scale that you want to be looking for, the Lydian mode. Next up, let's discuss what you ought to be using over your dominant 7th chord type. With this particular type of chord, you want to be aiming to target notes from the Mixolydian mode, which you see on the screen in front of you. So Mixolydian is root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, back to the root. Now that particular scale, again, I've shown it here as caged, but you can also play that 3 notes per string. Now let's take a look at our minor 7 chord types. Over this one, I would suggest that you want to be looking at using the Dorian mode. Okay, so the Dorian mode, as shown on the screen right now, is root 2, flat 3, 4, 5, major 6, flat 7, back to your root. Okay, next up we're going to talk about using the Locrian mode, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at using that over the next 2 chord types. Okay, so the Locrian mode is ideal for being used on the minor 7 flat 5 chord. So what you can see against your minor 7 flat 5 chord, you're going to have your root, flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7, back to the root. And that works against that chord because if you look at the arpeggio tones that are in there, you've got your root, whoops, then you've got your flat 3, you've got your flat 5, and then you've got your flat 7 over here. Okay, so Locrian is the perfect partner for your minor 7 flat 5 chords. Now, in other walks of music education, over this chord type, which we'll call the altered dominant chord type, my favourite one of these is the dominant 7 sharp 5, so I'm going to use that here. What you would find, the scale of choice that most people talk about is something that's called the altered scale, but also its other name is the super Locrian mode. Now it's called super Locrian because it's like the Locrian mode, but instead of having a normal 4, it's got a flat 4. So this scale would have 1, flat 2, flat 3, flat 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. Now if we just quickly go back to looking at our standard Locrian mode, our Locrian mode from the major scale, so this isn't super Locrian, this is standard Locrian. So exactly the same, but it just has a normal perfect fourth. Okay. So what this means is that if you use this scale, this mode, the Locrian mode, against your altered dominants, you're still getting your flat 2, which is otherwise known as, if you go up an octave, that's a flat 9. Okay, a flat 9 alteration. Flat 3, well, that's otherwise known as a sharp 9. And then we've got our flat 5 and our flat 6, which is also known as a sharp 5. Okay, so by playing the standard Locrian mode, you've got everything that you would ever need in order to be able to play over the altered dominant chords there. Now, some people would look at this and go, well, this is a shortcut. Okay, so you're cutting corners by not learning things like the melodic minor or harmonic minor modes. And to a degree that's true, but jazz players such as Pat Martino or Alan Holdsworth can be found doing this sort of thing in their playing. So if it's good enough for those kind of guys, it's good enough for us as well. And like most things with music, it's not so much about the actual scale you're using, it's about how you deliver it to get the sonic effects that you want. You could play through all of that stuff and just omit the fourth completely, and then you've eradicated the problem. Just target the alterations. So what you need in order to practice this is kind of like a maintenance chord progression that allows you to work on all of these areas. This is the perfect kind of chord progression. So what you can see on your screen here, we have an A major 7 chord, 4 bars of. Then we're going into a dominant 7th chord. Now the reason I would go into a dominant 7th chord next is because it's only one note change. A major 7 is root 3rd 5th major 7. Dominant 7 is root 3rd 5th flat 7. 4 bars of this. Then you've got 4 bars of a minor 7. Okay, so again with that one we're just flattening the 3rd from our dominant 7th chord to create that chord. Then you go into 4 bars of your minor 7 flat 5. So again, we'll just flatten the 5th from our minor 7 to create that chord. Everything so far has been done in the key of A. So what we're looking at here is just changing the mode that we're using. So over this, you'd use a Lydian. Over this, you'd use a Mixolydian. Over this, you'd use a Dorian. Here, you'd use a Locrian. And then finally, we've got a change of key to an E7 altered. Now, the reason for that is because E7 altered is the dominant of A major 7. So this gives us a perfect resolution back to our A major 7. Now this is where you would get to work on using your Locrian mode in the key of E to resolve back to A. So again, to recap, over all of this you would use a Lydian, a Mixolydian, a Dorian, a Locrian, and then we would change here to E Locrian to resolve back to A Lydian. What I'm going to do now is demonstrate jamming that kind of idea over this backing track so you can see it in action. The 5 main chord types that you're going to encounter as an improvising rock fusion guitar player, and the scales that would fit over them if you only want to learn the modes of the major scale. If you go to the links in the description below, there is a more in-depth, full-on course of how you can use all of this stuff and combine it with techniques like legato, alternate picking, sweep picking and tapping. YouTube also has a fair idea of something else that I've made that could be really helpful for you, and it's just popped up on your screen somewhere around here right now. So click that if you're ready to watch more.